Hi everyone. So today I'm going to teach you about fueling during your menstrual cycle. So you might be thinking, why is this important? And the reason is because we have, as women, this superpower of having a menstrual cycle. And I know a lot of us think of it as less than a superpower, but if we can harness, what our biology is doing at any given point during our cycle, we can really one better understand it, better understand ourselves, and really figure out how to take how we're feeling and what our body's doing and turn that into a positive just by tweaking a few things of our nutrition during this time. So the first thing I wanted to go over, because a lot of us just don't learn this, is menstrual cycle 101. So just to give a brief overview of what a menstrual cycle is, and what it looks like and how it affects us. So the average cycle is 28 days long. I mean, this can vary. It can go anywhere from 28 days to 30 days. And it's broken into two 14-day periods. So the two phases within our menstrual cycle are the follicular phase and the luteal phase. So the first phase is the follicular phase, and that starts from day 1 through 14. And day 1 of your menstrual cycle, which is day 1 of the follicular phase, is the first day of your period. So that's day 1, and then it lasts through menstruation all the way till day 14, which is right around the time when you ovulate. And so on day 1 is the first day of your period, and that's when the follicle stimulating hormone levels rise, and the follicles are stimulated to mature the eggs for release. Day 12 of that cycle is when estrogen levels start to surge along with luteinizing hormones, which cause ovulation. And so that's just kind of the beginning of the cycle. That's the first 14 days all the way up until ovulation. The next phase is the luteal phase. And so that happens from day 15 all the way until day 28 in theory, but it could be a little bit longer depending on what your cycle is like. So this is your high hormone phase. Hormones are kicked into high gear. And some of you may have noticed that you feel just horrible 2 weeks before your period or 2 weeks after your period. And that's during this ovulation time when hormones start to surge and a lot is going on in our body and it causes a lot of fatigue. So progesterone levels start to rise, which starts surpassing your estrogen levels. And then both estrogen and progesterone peak 5 days before menstruation. So that's, somewhere around here. So that's why during this time you can feel sluggish. Some people get really tired. And for a lot of women, this ovulation period and when your hormone levels are surging is when we feel the worst. And think about the peak of your hormones, which is when estrogen and progesterone are at their peak. That's 5 days before menstruation. That's when you get those PMS symptoms. So really this time of the month is a rough one for us. So then if you're not pregnant, your progesterone levels will fall and you'll shed the lining of your uterus, which is then the beginning of your next cycle, day 1, and the follicular phase. And then all of that continues on. So I just thought this was kind of a nice way to look at everything all together. So, over here, we're on day 1. This is your follicular phase. You're developing your follicle, which is your egg. And that we can see like the follicle stimulating hormone starts to rise. This is our luteinizing hormone, estrogen, progesterone. This is menstruation. Then we carry that into as follicles develop all the way through to ovulation. Once ovulation happens, those luteinizing hormones and the follicle stimulating hormones drop, estrogen levels start to drop, and progesterone starts to pick up. And then this is the continuation of the luteal phase when estrogen and progesterone start to pick up again. And right around here is right when your PMS symptoms start. So I just thought it was a nice kind of picture of what is going on within your body. Okay, so we're going to go over, what we can do about having our menstrual cycle. It's not something we can get rid of. And so if we're able to harness what our body's already doing and kind of understand what's going on during all of these different times in the month, we'll be better equipped to fuel our bodies for our athletic performance, but also to just feel better during these times. So one thing to keep in mind is that estrogen reduces your carb burning ability while increasing fat burning and fatty acid availability. Estrogen also promotes endurance performance by altering the carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism, with progesterone often appearing to act antagonistically. And the thing with that is, so estrogen and progesterone peak at around the same time. So you're kind of working against each other. And so it's really important to know what's going on during each phase so that you can better help yourself, because in one phase it might be better to have a carb heavy diet, it might be better to eat more protein, whereas in another phase you might need something else. So that's what we're going to go into. So what do we need to do, or what do we need to know for fueling during the follicular phase? So just as a reminder, the follicular phase is day 1 of your period all the way through day 14 of your cycle. And so iron supplementation is really important. And so diagnosis of iron deficiency is more likely during the follicular phase than it is during the luteal phase. And so iron supplementation has been shown to improve distance running performance by reducing perceived fatigue and move disturbances. So I would say it's something to look into, having, either an iron supplement, or maybe it might be something that you take for half the month. But I do recommend getting tested, because you don't necessarily want to supplement iron if you don't need it. But it is something to keep in mind, especially if you've been feeling more fatigued recently. It could be a sign of anemia, but again, get tested, talk to your doctor before you decide to jump on a supplement. Another good way to kind of just shore up your system is to take a multivitamin. So most multivitamins have an iron supplement in it. And so that way you're not getting a ton of iron, but you're getting enough. And if you're still feeling, maybe a little off, it might be worth going a trip to the doctor or getting your blood tested. Another thing that's important for fueling during the follicular phase is that in recent research, carbohydrate electrolyte solutions have been shown to improve and increase exercise time to exhaustion during the follicular phase. And so what does that mean for us, though? It just means that having things like carbs on hand during your exercise and electrolytes is important to supplement. And so just keeping an eye on that can really help with your performance. So some foods that we can eat to help us during the follicular phase: spinach is really high in iron. So this is all things that you want to keep in mind, are things that are high in iron, protein. And so spinach, legumes, pumpkin seeds, quinoa, broccoli, tofu, chocolate, all of these are really good and high in iron. And so are all things to keep on hand during the follicular phase. So then we jump to the luteal phase, which, just to remind you, is day 15 all the way through the last day of your cycle, so the day before your period. And so what's important during the luteal phase is protein. Protein is so important during this time, especially protein that contains leucine and branched chain amino acids, which is BCAAs. That's key during this time because muscle breakdown starts to occur. And so you want to give your body all the building blocks it needs in order to prevent that from happening. You also want to put more carbohydrates into your system during this time. You burn more calories during your high hormone phase, which is the luteal phase. And so you really want to be mindful of what you're eating and how much you're eating, and not to underfuel. And in another lecture, we'll go over all the consequences of underfueling, but it's really important during this time of the month to listen to your body. That's why PMS, I mean, think about it. What do you want the most during that PMS phase? You want chocolate, you want, I really like potato chips, like anything salty, sweet, high in carbohydrates. Like, I don't want anything nutritious during this time. And this is why it's your body telling you to eat more carbs. Another thing to keep in mind during the luteal phase is if you're exercising in the heat, pay special attention to hydration and electrolytes. And this is because our body's thermal regulation system is different during this time. And so it's important to do things to support ourselves through this. So, if you're exercising in the heat, you might want to bring some hydration where maybe you wouldn't normally, or electrolytes. I really like the Roctane goo roctane electrolyte capsules. Those are really great because they also have ginger in them. So if you have any GI issues, not only does it have a really good proportion of potassium, which is actually, I would say, more important than sodium for electrolytes. It also has that stomach soothing effect from ginger, and so can be really helpful. And also doesn't taste gross. There's no weird flavors. It's just a pill. You take it, eat, and it's easy. Another thing to look for during the luteal phase is to eat nitric oxide rich foods, and this helps with PMS symptoms, so fatigue, brain fog, stuff like that. So to jump into those foods to eat during the luteal phase. So the nitric oxide rich foods are things like beets, watermelon, pomegranate, spinach. You also want to eat foods that are rich in carbohydrates. I mean, this can be anything. Also, if you're exercising, this is not the time to munch on a salad with some like low carbs. You want eat a pizza, get some tacos, eat a burger. You want something high in carbs. Like don't skip the extra roll with your, if you are going to do a salad, don't get rid of the croutons. Like eat a lot of carbs. We are athletes and we need to fuel our bodies for the performance that we want. Another thing to look for is protein rich foods. We went over this. So things like tofu, legumes are a great source. And then other things that help raise serotonin levels, which can drop during this PMS phase, is things like dark chocolate and pumpkin seeds. So really to sum up what we talked about is our body is doing some incredible things every month. And although sometimes, let's be honest, it can be a real pain, it's if we know what's going on and how to harness that, we can make some little tweaks in our nutrition, in our hydration that can really help us as we exercise through the month, so that we're not left wondering, well, why do I feel like this? Why am I feeling so crappy? Normally, when I take one gel in the middle of a long workout, that's enough. Well, are you maybe during the luteal phase when you need more carbs? Maybe you take 2 gels. So it's all something to think about as we go forward, because we really can harness what our body is doing and eat to enhance our performance. Thank you.